Hey guys, today I want to take a look at a 2024 scenario between incumbent President Joe Biden and Senator Ted Cruz of the state of Texas, who of course was the runner-up for the GOP nomination in 2016 when Donald Trump was nominated by the Republican Party. In that race, he was the runner-up, and he even won the crucially important state of Iowa, but he did end up getting second in that nomination process. And today I want to take a look at how Joe Biden would do against Ted Cruz as his challenger. So before we get started, make sure you join my Discord server if you have not. The link to which is at the very top of the description below. We have a pretty cool mock government on there, so make sure you join that if you have not. By taking a look at the chances of Joe Biden becoming the 2024 Democratic nominee, right now his chances are 38 cents per share. This really isn't Biden's chances of winning the nomination. If he runs, he's going to win the nomination. The Democrats are not going to shy away from electing renominating their incumbent president. But the thing is that there's a very good chance that Joe Biden does not end up running in 2024 because of his age or any other reasons, mainly just his age. He is the oldest president ever. When he was inaugurated, he was older than Ronald Reagan when Reagan left office. He was also older than Trump when Trump left office, so definitely Joe Biden's age is going to be something to talk about over the next couple of years, about whether or not he can actually survive another 4 years in office after his first. But Kamala Harris had been leading in terms of her chances of winning the nomination for quite a bit by a pretty small margin. However, Joe Biden's recently caught up, and he is now the front runner for the 2024 Democratic nomination, which I think the Democrats should be happy about. I do think Joe Biden definitely a much stronger candidate than Kamala Harris. His current approval rating is plus 13.2% on 538. It's around the same on Real Clear Politics, and definitely it's much better than Harris's favorability, which is around 5%. So definitely Joe Biden is around 8% more favorably viewed than Kamala Harris. And for the GOP nomination, Ted Cruz only at 6 cents per share, but this is really very, very early. Donald Trump has taken the lead over Ron DeSantis once again over the last couple of days, as there's been lots of talk about Trump restarting his MAGA rallies, which are basically his campaign rallies. So right now, DeSantis has dropped. Nikki Haley has stayed pretty stagnant at around 10. Ted Cruz chances have fallen a little bit, but definitely he still does have a very good chance. It is very, very early, and these betting odds are not polls. And right now, though, the issue for Ted Cruz is he's just so disliked. If you look, these are his 2016 numbers. These are basically his approval numbers from 2016 when he was running for that GOP nomination against Donald Trump. It goes up to May, which is basically when he conceded the nomination race. But as you can see, his final average for the 2016 Republican nomination was negative 25.1%. You compare this to Joe Biden. Joe Biden's favorability has never been that bad. He was not popular during the Democratic nomination. He was one of the most unpopular candidates. However, negative 25.1% was a number that he never reached or even was close to. I mean, this is worse than the numbers that Trump saw throughout his presidency. It's comparable to Trump's numbers during the GOP nomination as well, but definitely negative 25.1 really is very, very bad. For his approval right now, this is basically a more recent poll. The numbers for Cruz are from YouGov and The Economist. So as you can see, Ted Cruz's favorability right now is 34%, unfavorable 45, a net negative 11. So he's among some of the most unpopular Republicans in the country. Compared to even Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley is quite a bit more unpopular than Ted Cruz, but he is less popular than Liz Cheney even. Comparable to Kevin McCarthy. So really his popularity is not a strong point for him as of right now. And I want to start off by filling in the solid states for Joe Biden on this map, and then the solid states for Ted Cruz on this map as well. So definitely I think that Joe Biden will win all the states he won by solid margins in 2016, with solid margins again in 2024. So of course, all of these states in the upper northeast, as well as Illinois and the west. I will also be including Colorado and New Mexico, both of these states on this list. I think that definitely both of these states will be solid for Joe Biden in 2024. They are margins of 10.8% and 13.5% for Biden in 2020. But again, someone like Ted Cruz, they will definitely be able to do better. Even though New Mexico neighbors Texas, I don't think that will actually help Ted Cruz. And I'll go over that in just a moment here. But in 2016, these margins are only 4.9 8.9% and 8.2%. So Joe Biden, especially in Colorado, did much, much better. I'm confident in Biden winning Colorado by a solid margin. But in New Mexico, I think that it'll be a little tough. But against Ted Cruz, I think it's definitely doable for the incumbent. So this will give Joe Biden 196 electoral votes. And for the solid states for the senator, I have basically most of these states in the middle of the country. However, I will not be including states like Mississippi, Missouri, and Kansas, and Montana as well. I do think those states will be a little bit closer. So the solid states for Ted Cruz comes out to a total of 75 electoral votes for the Texan senator. So 196-75, definitely Joe Biden starts off with an advantage, but I want to move on to giving Ted Cruz his likely states. These are states that he's definitely going to win: Montana, Kansas, Missouri, Mississippi, Indiana, South Carolina, and Alaska. I believe all these states will all be likely for Ted Cruz. If you look at the 2020 numbers here, Missouri was barely solid for Trump. Kansas was likely. South Carolina was likely. Alaska was also likely. There's no way that Ted Cruz is better in these states. Mississippi was likely. This state is getting less and less red. Montana as well was only 16.4%. Mississippi 16.5%. Definitely very close to 15, and very very capable to go under for all of these states. If you look at 2012, I mean, Mississippi, Missouri, these were all likely states. Indiana as well. You go back a little bit, 2008, I mean, all these states were likely or less for the GOP, with the exception of Alaska. But John McCain's running mate, Sarah Palin, was from the state, which does make sense there. If you look at 2004, I mean, many of these states, Missouri especially, were all likely. The map is definitely a little bit different, but Donald Trump was able to do very well in these solid Republican states in 2016. Really did win them by pretty strong margins, but come 2020, his margins definitely weakened in basically every single state. I believe the only states in which Trump actually did better in, I believe, are the states of between 2016 and 2020. I believe it's Florida and Hawaii. I believe those are the only states that Trump did better in 2020, which really is quite disappointing. Basically, Joe Biden better in every single state on this map except for Florida and Hawaii. So definitely it's interesting. And then for Ted Cruz, also the first district of Nebraska I have as likely for him, giving him a total of 125 electoral votes. Now for Joe Biden, I want to move on to the likely states that I have for the incumbent president here, starting off with the state of Minnesota. I think Minnesota will definitely be a likely state for Joe Biden in this scenario. It was likely for him in 2020, won by 7.1%. This state, of course, has the longest Democratic voting streak of any state in the country. 2016, the margin was very, very small, 1.5% for Hillary Clinton. She definitely did very poorly here. But you go back to 2012, I mean, this state went to Obama by 7.7%. In 2008, 10.2%. So the state of Minnesota has a very long Democratic voting record. It has the longest Democratic voting record. In 1996, it was solid for Bill Clinton when he won this entire wall here for the Democratic Party. That was the last time the Democrats won, all of these states here. But in 1992 and before, I mean, Minnesota has been blue for a very long time. Even 1984, this was the only state Walter Mondale won in 1984 when he lost every other state against Ronald Reagan. But of course, Minnesota was his home state, but still, it was a margin of 0.18%, and he still was able to hold on to the state, making it so that he wouldn't win just 3 electoral votes. So really, Minnesota, very realistically, is going to be likely for Joe Biden. On top of that, I have the state of New Hampshire, another state that Hillary Clinton did very poorly in, the state of New Hampshire. Biden wins it by 7.4 in 2020, but 4 years before this, Hillary Clinton won New Hampshire by 0.37%. And I also have the state of Virginia as a likely state for Biden. In the state of Virginia, the interesting thing here is that Hillary Clinton did pretty poorly here, 5.3%. However, this state was transitioning from becoming a red battleground or a red stronghold to really now being a pretty blue state. And it's going to be, a Democratic stronghold in not too long. It's 10.1% for Joe Biden. I don't see this state being solid. If the margin increases by 5% again, like it did from 2016 and 2020, then yeah, it's going to be a solid state. But the state of Virginia, it does have a very, very long Republican voting history. I think that it's going to take a little bit more time for Virginia to actually be solid for the GOP or for the Democratic Party. And of course, Hillary Clinton was a pretty weak candidate, compared to Joe Biden. So we might not see as much of an increase, between Biden and Biden than we saw from Clinton to Biden. So this will give Joe Biden now 223. I also have the at-large vote in Maine. It's been likely and solid for a very long time, but Maine is definitely not as red as it used to be. So I'm going to give that to Joe Biden as likely. I believe the margin was around 10% for the main at-large vote in 2024. Joe Biden gets Donald Trump. I expect it to stay around the same. I do think he'll do a little better, but I don't think it can get to that solid territory. However, in the 2nd District of Nebraska, this was 6.6% in 2020 for Biden against Donald Trump, against Ted Cruz. I think he'll do a little bit better, making that margin up to a likely margin and putting Joe Biden at 226 electoral votes. Now we really have the battleground states on this. I'm gonna start off just by filling in the 2nd District domain so we can get that out of the way. I have it as tilt for Ted Cruz. This was a district that Donald Trump was able to do pretty well in. He won it in 2020 by 7.4%. In 2016, he won by 10.3%. I think that Ted Cruz will definitely do significantly worse than Donald Trump there. I mean, look at 2012. Obama won it by 8.6%. I think it's really just Ted Cruz that's going to be able to do well here. And I do think that, come 2024, Ted Cruz will only win this by a tilt margin, giving him now 126 to Joe Biden's 226 electoral votes. I now want to move on to the lean states on this map, specifically for Ted Cruz first. There are only 2 of them, Iowa and Ohio. No, Texas is not on this list. But for these states of Iowa and Ohio, I think that, these states were states that Donald Trump did terrific in 2016. If you look at 2008, Obama won Ohio by 4.6, Iowa by 9.5. In 2012, Obama wins Ohio by 3, Iowa by 5.8. Then in 2016, Obama controlled the entire Rust Belt. This entire Rust Belt area went to Barack Obama. These are, these historically blue areas. 2004, the Republicans did win these states. Ohio, of course, was a bellwether. But if you go back to, 2000, you saw Al Gore did pick up Wisconsin and Iowa. And you go back to the Clinton era, he won based on the entire Rust Belt with the exception of Indiana, with Bob Dole winning there. But yeah, definitely the whole Rust Belt was blue for a very long time, this northern area of the United States. But as the white population is increasing and the population of people of color are decreasing, this area is becoming less and less blue. But really, there was a significant shift in 2016 when basically the entire Rust Belt, with the exception of Illinois, went red for Donald Trump. In 2020, Joe Biden was able to flip half of it back. It was not enough to flip Iowa or Ohio. It wasn't even close. Trump still won Ohio by 8 points and Iowa by 8 points. His margins were essentially the same, except Iowa was a little bit over 9% in 2016, so the margins here stayed the same. However, that really is only Donald Trump. If you look at the Senate elections, Iowa was only 6.5 for Joni Ernst on the Senate level. In 2018, Sherrod Brown won in Ohio, but if you look at 2016, you saw Chuck Grassley and Rob Portman, popular incumbents from the GOP, winning by solid margins in 2016 when Trump only won these states by 8%. So definitely really depends on who the candidates are, and Ted Cruz really has no connection to these states here. I don't see Ted Cruz doing well in those states come 2020, and I think I just messed this whole thing up here. If I can get to past elections. Let me just reload this. But definitely for 2024, these states I'm gonna have to put as lean for Ted Cruz. I don't see a big margin happening for him in these 2 states. So this puts him at 149. For Joe Biden, some lean states, the Rust Belt, the upper Rust Belt, I do think will go blue for Joe Biden in 2024. The states of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. These states in 2020, they were definitely smaller margins than I have on this map right here. As you can see in the 2020 election, if I can actually get to it. Yeah, so in 2020, Wisconsin was 0.63%, Michigan was the only lean out of these 3 states, 2.8, and Pennsylvania was a margin of 1.2. Against Ted Cruz, these margins can definitely increase by 1-2%, and I can definitely see it, all becoming lean here in the upper Rust Belt. But I do think that Joe Biden's win here in the Rust Belt will be definitely one of the last for the Democratic Party in the Rust Belt for a pretty long time. So this puts Biden up at 270 electoral votes, confirming his re-election. Some 2 other lean states I have are the states of Nevada and Georgia, all as lean. Nevada 2.4% for Biden in 2020. Georgia only 0.3%, I believe. Let me take a look. Instead of Georgia, it was 0.23%. Okay, so in Georgia, I think that the margin will increase for Joe Biden, especially against Ted Cruz. I don't think that Ted Cruz will be able to excite too many voters here in Texas, but that'll give him 292. I also have Arizona as a tilt state for Joe Biden. 11 electoral votes. The state did not gain an electoral vote from the 2020 census, but in Arizona, I think Ted Cruz will be able to do a little bit better just from that geographic advantage with it being near Texas. And I think that state of Nevada or state of Arizona is definitely a little bit less blue than Georgia at this point. I think Georgia is the just the advantage that Democrats have with the population and the makeup of that population with the black population. I think that'll definitely boost Georgia a lot more. North Carolina, I also have as another state that Biden will win. This is his first flip, believe it or not. But in the state of North Carolina, I do believe that 16 electoral votes will go to Joe Biden over Ted Cruz. The state has gone to a Democrat recently before. Of course, it was Barack Obama in 2008 by a very small margin over John McCain when he won, Indiana by a larger margin. But in 2012, 2016, and 2020, Democrats lost the state of North Carolina. Trump only won it by 1.3 in 2020, but against Ted Cruz, it's definitely very possible that Joe Biden does better there and wins it. Florida as well would be another state that I would give to the Democratic Party. In the state of Florida, it was 3.4% for Donald Trump, but that was it for Donald Trump. The state of Florida is still a toss-up, in the end, and Joe Biden is an incumbent, and incumbents, do typically do much, much better in the state of incumbents do typically do much, much better in the state of Florida. Florida does like incumbents. I mean, if you look at 2018, Rick Scott won by a very narrow margin of 0.12%. You also saw, in the 2018 gubernatorial race, Ron DeSantis did not win by a large margin. Ron DeSantis barely won his governor election. Marco Rubio, as the incumbent in 2016, won by 7.7%. So the margins can sway, from big to large for the GOP, but Democrats can definitely win there. And Joe Biden, as the incumbent president, I think it's very possible that he does win. In Texas, I'm not going to give it to a Democrat. I'm actually going to give it to Ted Cruz. I do think that Ted Cruz would still win his home state of Texas, but I don't think the margin is going to be big at all. If you look at the 2016 Senate race between Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz, not 2016, 2018, this was a close one. I mean, Ted Cruz won re-election in 2018 by 2.6%. 2.6% Ted Cruz wins re-election in 2018. I mean, just looking at this race, it was against a very, very strong Democratic candidate. I think that, on top of Ted Cruz's unpopularity, and you put a very strong Democrat there, you can definitely make this race very, very close. Ted Cruz won by less than 3% in the state of Texas. I mean, just looking at how terrible this is, if you go back to 2012, Cruz won by 15.8%. You go back 6 more years. In 2006, Hutchinson wins by 25.6%. I mean, go back to 2000, the margin was 32.8%. So definitely Ted Cruz's victory in 2018 was one of the smallest for a Senate in Texan history, especially since Texas became, one of the most red states in the country. 2020, John Cornyn won by 9.6%. Definitely not strong for him either. These abysmal margins are not going to help Ted Cruz, but Joe Biden can definitely do well in Texas. I mean, he only lost the state by 5% against Ted Cruz, who is not popular in it at all. Just because he's from the state, it's not going to help him with, the fact that Ted Cruz is from the state. So I think that's actually going to make it worse for Ted Cruz. If you look at the approval rating of Joe Biden and Ted Cruz, you can see Biden right now is more popular than Ted Cruz in the state of Texas. This was April 2021. Joe Biden's approval 44%, disapprove 46%. Ted Cruz's approval is 1 point lower, and his disapproval is 2 points higher. Joe Biden's also more popular than John Cornyn. Compared to Greg Abbott, he has a stronger approval rating than Greg Abbott as well. Greg Abbott, the governor of the state of Texas, and compared to basically every other one of these Republican officials, Joe Biden's approval is higher. He has the highest right now at 44%, much better than the U.S. Congress as a whole and their 2 senators with Ted Cruz and John Cornyn. So right now, I do think that Texas will hold on for the GOP. This might be one of the last times they win it, but I do think that Ted Cruz, even though he's very unpopular in his home state, will still be able to hold on to it in 2024. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you like it down below if you enjoyed it. Comment down below who you think would win between Joe Biden and Ted Cruz. Subscribe to our channel if you have not. Join my Discord server if you haven't. Link at the very top of the description below. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.